Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. Hope you guys are waking up and feeling good out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great week out there as it's coming to an end. We're about to head off into our weekend, so that's always good news, right? But here to give you the updated information that we have from overnight into this morning as far as model guidance and just all the detailed information that we have, the latest stuff. The first thing we'll go over is current conditions out here in the Atlantic, the latest from the National Hurricane Center, and then we'll take a deep dive into all the model runs from overnight. We'll take a look at ensemble guidance, and then we'll geek out with you guys a little bit, discuss the environmental background of the Atlantic and how it will support a lot of tropical activity, especially as we get into next week. We'll speak a little bit on steering currents also, and then we'll round the video off with today's forecast and then a Bible devotion at the very end of the video if you are interested in that. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Of course, if anybody has anything that we can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so we can do that. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. I almost said tonight. So making so many videos lately that I'm getting confused on whether it's morning or the evening, right? So latest in the Atlantic right now, not a ton to circle out here. The leftovers of Dexter cruising out here way up in the North Atlantic. It continues to move and not really bother anybody. We're watching some unsettled weather off the coast of the southeast. Remember, once upon a time, model guidance liked the idea of this maybe developing as strong as a tropical storm at one point, but that definitely backed off a few days ago. But we're still getting some shower and storm activity, and there's still technically a chance, per the National Hurricane Center, of tropical development somewhere in this area. But whether or not it develops or not, it will continue to head off in this general direction, pretty much the same flow that Dexter took. So even if this did develop into a tropical storm, next name is Aaron, by the way, with an E, not an A, an E, it would just head on out into the Atlantic. So the next thing I'll circle here as far as current conditions out here in the Atlantic is way out here in the tropical Atlantic, the MDR, main development region. Right now, not super convectively active. We do have Invest 96L, which is technically like right into here, but I mean, it's really void of convection. Convection meaning shower and storm activity. You're not really seeing any cold cloud tops, which, this being an example of cold cloud tops here. You see, the greens and the yellows and the orange and reds and blacks embedded in those colors. That indicates colder cloud tops. That means we have taller updrafts, stronger updrafts. The taller up you get in the upper levels of the atmosphere, the colder it gets, and this is reflected by, for example, these colors right here in the circled area. And you're not seeing much with that with Invest 96L, but still has a 60% chance to develop as of the 2 a.m. update per the National Hurricane Center, which I'll show you here in a second. The next thing I'll circle, and we'll take a closer look at North Africa here in a second, is this energy here. Now, this really isn't the main energy we're watching, but this does look like a lot of tropical energy coming off the coastline of Africa. I do think we need to watch this, but I mean, it's just going to be a lot of activity that in general is going to emerge off Africa over the coming days, and we just got to watch to see where does this energy get going. I think inevitably it will sometime next week and the next weekend. It's just where. So we're going to go over all that here in a second. But I just want to circle this area. We'll take a deeper look at this here in a second. So that's current conditions. There's not a whole lot to circle out here. But let's move past. This is the latest from the National Hurricane Center, pretty much the 2 a.m. update. And, they got rid of doing 5 a.m. updates just because we no longer have Dexter out here. So they're back to 2, 8 a.m. and then I think it goes to 11 p.m., 2 p.m. Anyways, there's not going to be a 5 a.m. update. I mean, we're already an hour and a half past 5 a.m. Anyways, the next update is at 8 a.m. or around 7:30. And there could be some changes with this. Right now, we still are watching this X area, which is where we kind of have some unsettled weather off the coast of the southeast. Has a 20% chance to develop now, so it's dropped even more into some sort of low pressure, but it really says a non-tropical area of low pressure is expected to form. So this is going to lack tropical characteristics regardless if it forms or not. And then we're still watching what is Invest 96L. This orange X is about where it's at, but like I said, with what we just showed you on satellite, it's really void of any kind of high-end activity, but has that 60% chance to develop once it gets into this orange area. And that means that has a 60% chance to develop within the next 7 days into a tropical depression or a named storm. So I'm not going to talk about this much. Maybe some other people will, but all model guidance now points with this system that it's not going to get very strong, and even if it does, it's likely going to recurve. So The next area I'm watching, which isn't on here, and I could see them bringing this up today or sometime over the next 24 hours, is I really think the National Hurricane Center is going to put like an X over here and then do a little arrow, kind of like with this right here and this right here, and then do like a yellow circle right into here and say there's going to be a 20, maybe 30% chance of tropical development once a wave that's over North Africa, and this X probably should be backed up a little bit more over Africa, gets into this area. So wave then has a shot to develop in this area. That's my call. Okay, so moving past this, we'll see if that happens. Let's dive right into this activity. Okay, so this is Africa here. This is the wave train, what us weather geeks call it. A lot of tropical moisture just kind of cruising east to west. So this is a wave right here, and let's draw on this a little bit. This is a wave right here. This is a wave right here. This is more energy back here. I want to watch any of this, honestly, but really this one right here. This might be the one, but it could be any of this energy coming off. But I just kind of, I've never actually showed this on my channel before, but this is actually a look at Africa and how the waves are cruising across this area. So these eventually get over the Atlantic, then have a shot to develop. And Model Guidance is very excited about the idea of something developing out of this wave energy here. So moving past that, I just kind of want to have a starting point here of where this is starting from, right? So let's go over all model guidance. This is the latest from the Euro overnight, and we're going to start this, around Sunday here in the next couple of days, August the 10th. Okay, so this is where it's saying around the tropical wave will be a 1010 millibar low, weak area of low pressure, weak tropical wave. So this is going to continue to cruise as we get into Monday. And by Monday evening, it could be right here. So it's just moving, in general, east to west at this point. And then we start to get into Wednesday. This wave could be right around here, still weak. That seems to be the general trend with model guidance, is it's going to keep whatever wave energy out here pretty weak through what we call the MDR, the main development region, tropical Atlantic, this entire region right here. It's going to keep energy pretty weak. It's not going to strengthen it much in this area. That seems to be the trend on model guidance. But as this continues to sort of cruise into Thursday of next week, and then about a week out from right now, still just 1,009 millibar low, it doesn't look like much here on your screen. So once you start to get this number right here, your millibar number, to about 1,000 millibars or lower, that means you're starting to get a stronger tropical system. Always kind of consider that the area of what we can call a tropical storm based purely off the millibar number. Once you get to around 1,000 millibars, I feel comfortable saying, hey, that's probably close to tropical storm status. So it doesn't mean everything. That doesn't always immediately correlate to wind speeds, but it's a good gauge to look at in my opinion. But as we get to about a week out, we get past a week. Okay, so this is between day 7 and day 9 or something. Okay, this begins to gain a little bit of latitude, starts to sniff out a weakness, and starts to get a little bit further northwest. So let's go on and switch it to this. And here it is, next Saturday morning, August the 16th. Okay, it's up here. We start to get into next Sunday. Okay, so we're, 9 days from now? Still a weaker low pressure, 1,007 millibars. But watch as you get closer to day 10. That number begins to drop rapidly. We're in the 990s, we're in the 980s, and then we're dealing with a strong hurricane, close to major hurricane status, off the coast of the eastern U.S., the southeast or mid-Atlantic coastline. But it looks like it's gained a lot of latitude. Now, if you look at the run, from yesterday afternoon, had this way over here, about to hit Florida as a category 2 or 3 hurricane. The one overnight is a little bit more over here. So you think, well, it's crazy. This is why, you as the public, of course, I'm a weather geek, so, I kind of know this. Don't latch on to one model run. And that's why I don't post these model runs on my social media accounts. I say, hey, here's an invite to watch my YouTube video, and you can hear me talk about this. I don't like just post it, even if you put context behind it. The people looking at some of these images are not going to grasp. That's why I like to speak to you guys about this. So I want you to grab from this, hey, like next Tuesday, and not next Tuesday, but Tuesday, August the 19th. Okay, so 2 Tuesdays from now has a strengthening tropical system in the southwest Atlantic. The model before that had it over here, and the run before that had it over here. So it's kind of ticked north, right? I wouldn't call that a trend. The only trend I would get from this is that a wave gets into this area and then has an opportunity to strengthen. That's the trend. Okay, what about the Euro AI model? Same thing. Gets a tropical wave right here. We start to get into Tuesday of next week. Okay, we get into Wednesday, August the 13th. Once again, it keeps this wave strong. It keeps it weak. And I do want to watch any other individual waves behind this too. But I'm really focusing a lot on this one. We get about a week from today. Okay, has still a weaker low pressure getting close to the Leeward Islands at this point. So let's go on and flip it to this. Okay, so next Saturday morning, not tomorrow, next Saturday morning, August the 16th, 1008 millibar low. That's probably like a tropical depression, maybe still just an open wave. But watch how it begins to strengthen. Now, what's odd to me, and someone made a great post about this yesterday about the Euro AI model, and it could be a flaw with this model, is it wants to strengthen tropical systems over land. So let me tell you something. There's high elevations in Cuba and Hispaniola, heck, even Puerto Rico. So there's no way a tropical system is going to strengthen over these areas. Now, it doesn't take much to get off coast because these are kind of long islands, right? But it strengthens this over the islands. Not fast, but, it gets it south of Cuba and then proceeds to split the gap between Cuba and the Yucatan. And, at the end of the run, has a hurricane that's hitting major status in the Gulf, which is one area of the ocean in the Atlantic we don't want anything getting into. So the Euro AI model is locked in. Okay, this is the run before that, run before that, run before that. So, it just wants the idea of this wave surviving. Once again, what you take from this is that a wave survives the Atlantic, barely. It gets into the area of the ocean, Southwest Atlantic, Caribbean, or Gulf, and then strengthens and takes off. I'm gonna talk to you about why it does that. What about the latest GFS? And we got about 10 days out, which is a good point. We've been getting pretty lucky with this. So we start this coming Sunday morning. There's our wave I haven't talked about that has that 60% chance to develop. It just doesn't look like it's going to survive, guys. And if it does, it's going to turn out to sea. Here comes the wave behind it, the wave of interest. Next Monday, next Tuesday, next Wednesday, little compact baby tropical wave right here, fighting dry air. And then it begins to gain some strength. So we get about a week out from right now. One thing, the GFS is different from other model guides that I just showed you with the fact that it likes to strengthen this a lot quicker. And I don't buy that. But we switch it to this. We go a week out because the panels were not done loading when I pulled up all the panels for the video. Here it is, 998 millibar low. That's probably a tropical storm. And of course, it's going to strengthen once it gets in the Southwest Atlantic. We've been talking about why like crazy in all these videos. And sure enough, here it is strengthening into a major hurricane. By the way, there's another hurricane out here. And now we have a major Category 3 or higher hurricane about to bear down the Bahamas about 10, 11 days from now, based off this GFS run. Once again, you take from this that it survives that tropical wave and it takes off and explodes in strength in the Southwest Atlantic. It would be the same thing if it got into the Caribbean. And obviously the Gulf comes after the Southwest Atlantic and the Caribbean. That's what you take from this. You don't take from this, hey, Mitch, I see a huge hurricane about to hit the Bahamas August the 18th. I'm going to tell everybody in my cousin's uncle's cow that that's going to happen. That's not what you take from this. You look at the trend. You say, hey, wave survives the Atlantic, has an opportunity to strengthen once it does. That's the worry with this. And it's still strengthening, even at day 10 and 11. So that's why. I'm going to talk to you about why. Okay. What about the Euro Ensemble, guys? Remember, this makes up 51 members. So you're going to see a whole bunch of L's on your screen. Please don't think that there's just a bunch of low pressures. This makes up 51 members. On this output puts all the members that form into a decent in strength low pressure on your screen. So here's the recurving signal of 96L. We're going to ignore that. Here comes the wave we've been talking to death right here behind it. Keeps most of these members weak, and I know it's hard to see on your screen, but most of these are like around 1,000 and something millibars. weaker low pressure. But as we get to about day 10, we'll stop it here. It follows the ensemble, it follows the operational runs. And I'll take a zoomed in look at this. And there is some strong members in this, and they're getting stronger. Okay, some of them are kind of cruising and clustered up right into here. Some of them are turning out to sea, which is what we hope for. And you got a few of them that are, cruising over the Greater Antilles. That's a signal. Okay, what about the GFS ensemble? Same thing, signal for the recurving invest here. The one behind it is what you watch. Remember, the GFS ensemble only makes up 21 members. So you're not going to see as many L's on this. And that is a strong signal for that tropical wave surviving, slipping into, in this case, the GFS and its ensembles like the Southwest Atlantic. So, I zoom into this. There is a lot of strong members into this. A lot of sub 1000, sub 990 millibar members into here. But a lot of them are starting to recurve. I'm going to talk about why there's a possibility of that here too, here in a second. So now let's geek out a little bit. My goal with geeking out with you guys in these segments is to explain this in a way where you guys can understand. So ask questions in the comments. Don't ever feel like they're stupid questions. Please just ask away, and I'll do my best to explain them, put links in there, things like that. So this is pretty simple. Dry air is the brown. Moist air is the green you see on your map. Here's our wave of interest here. Okay, not our area of interest, the wave of interest. I would say the wave that has Mitch's interest, if you will. This thing is going to be plowing into a lot of dry air. You can see it here. Like, here's our tropical system. Weak tropical wave. Look at this slither of dry air that's going to be moving right into. Okay? There's also not a strong Atlantic high up here that's going to just bog this down and keep it low. So I do think it'll gain a little bit of latitude, which will make it go more into that dry air. So we keep this in motion. This is sort of plowing into that deep dry air right here, but there's still a pocket of moisture. So if it retains a pocket of moisture here, it's still weak on the euro as we get about, and I got a sneeze coming, that's why I'm crinkling my nose. Hopefully it goes away. But 9 to 10 days out, it is still a weak tropical system on the euro. The GFS a little bit different. And you can see why. I mean, there's a lot of dry air on the west side of the system, and the moist air sort of shunted off to the west side of the system. I would say dry air on the west side of the system, moist air on the east side of the system. But watch as it taps into a more favorable upper wind pattern here. And all of a sudden, it gets a very cocooned, moist environment. You can see it here, and that is why. Watch how this millibar drop goes to 1,000 millibars next Monday morning, August the 18th. And then by the time you're into Wednesday morning, it's a strong Category 2 hurricane 48 hours later. It's because this thing creates a better environment for itself, cocoons itself with moist air, and that is because the upper wind pattern improves. And I'm going to talk about why they kind of work together here in a second. Dry air is around this system, but it cannot penetrate the core of this. Okay? And then it goes ahead and just continues to thrive. So this thing will battle dry air in the main development region. And that's the thing, is it might not survive the dry air. Now here's the upper wind pattern discussion. Okay, and this is the Euro ensemble. It's saying that there's probably going to be some sort of lower pressure right into here. It's indicated by this 1010 millibar low. So this is the smoothed out ensemble one, so it's going to show just kind of a blend, right? In the low to mid levels, these things spin cyclonically in the northern hemisphere, so it's spinning like this. But at 200 millibars, which is what I'm showing you with this, okay, the winds are actually expanding outward, okay? So that's one thing I want you to take from this. The other thing is there's very light flow. Like you see this blue up here, this is where we have stronger flow at 200 millibars, which is 40,000 feet up in the air. Okay, a little bit of stronger flow down here, a little bit of stronger flow up here. In the white, that's where we have very light flow in the upper levels of the atmosphere. This is actually above the shower and storm activity being generated by this tropical system, whatever it may be, hurricane, tropical wave, or tropical storm. So on top of the system, air is actually spinning out anticyclonically. The opposite is cyclonically. Okay, so this is allowing for air to be, basically air is rising through the system as it's trying to fire up convection. That air is being pushed out. Okay, whether it's pushed out one direction or in different directions, this is rapidly allowing for more air to rise. That's getting pushed out, and it's a continuous cycle. It's like an exhaust system for this storm system. We know that rising air allows for more shower and storm activity. Shower and storm activity creates a moist environment. These tropical systems like moist air. They don't want dry air. So basically this upper wind pattern is allowing for a continuous atmosphere of rising air. So it's able to create a cocooned, moist environment to protect the heart and soul of these tropical systems, which is the low-level circulation. Now, this is more of a kind of nerding out session because we don't know if a tropical system is going to get into this area. What I want you to take from this is, if anything does get into this area, the upper wind pattern, which is one out of, in my opinion, three, I would say, major things we look at. One, the upper wind pattern, sea surface temperatures, and whether or not there's, moist or dry air. Okay, so the environment favors just a tropical system to be able to almost create its own environment. So I hope that makes sense. Air rising, it's able to disperse outward. And in this case, there's such light flow that it actually can create its own environment in a way, in a sense. I always like to say that. And, you look at the Euro operational run, you can see it. This is at this point when this begins to take off. You fast forward another 48 hours after this is getting down to the 970s. At this point, it's around 999, 1,000 millibar low. And it's in the process of taking off in strength. And that's because in the upper levels, you got you can see these arrows right here embedded in these lines kind of expanding outward. They're kind of dropping down like this, going like that. And it almost looks like you have what we call anticyclone above this system. Upper level anticyclone. ULAC is an acronym for that. So this would allow for an explosive environment, upper wind pattern wise, for rapid intensification. You add that with the fact that the Southwest Atlantic, and everywhere, guys, the Caribbean, the Gulf, but especially the Gulf and the Southwest Atlantic is very warm. Southwest Atlantic is well above average sea surface temperature wise, and it's an area of the ocean that I continue to harp on that I'm worried about. You got 29s and 30s and 31s on your screen. That's equivalent to, when you convert that from Celsius to Fahrenheit, I mean, that's the mid to upper 80s. Some areas, some buoys out here are probably reporting 90-degree plus sea surface temperatures. So it's very warm. So we don't even have to stay on that very long. That's obvious. Now, one thing that's more tough to explain is steering currents. I can tell you with any wave, we're starting to understand and see why this system will sort of cruise more so east to west initially. So this is around next Tuesday, August the 12th. We got a low pressure here, the wave of interest, and it's sort of just kind of cruising this direction. I'm going to use black. It's just sort of cruising this direction. And it's kind of somewhat being steered by, you see this high pressure right here. The warmer colors is high pressure. The cooler colors, light blues, that's lower pressure, which is, you can see it's lower pressure right here. With our tropical system. So this is kind of being steered by the flow around this ridge. You do got a little bit of a weakness right here between two ridges of high pressure, and then there's some flow kind of doing like this. So in general, I want you to really focus on this feature right here. Flow is kind of steering this. Now, I think this tropical system could begin to, once it kind of gets into this end of this arrow that I'm drawing, could gain a little bit of latitude. I don't know if I buy this system kind of just cruising right into the Lesser Antilles, into the Caribbean, unless you get a strong ridge that really builds over this region and just kind of keeps it like this. I think there's too much weakness in the flow up here in the North Atlantic. But anyways, this system is going to still, because it's weak, and I'll reiterate this, a weaker system is going to be steered more by lower to mid-level currents in the atmosphere. A stronger system is going to want to gain latitude, because all strong systems do that, and because a stronger system is going to be a taller system. It's popping off deeper, taller updrafts, and it's going to be steered more by upper level currents. So you keep this going here, and what we're seeing here is we're getting into Wednesday, Thursday of next week. The position of this high pressure stays around the same. There's a wide open weakness right here of lower pressure. This thing could easily take this route here if it was stronger, but it's still weak. So by the time this thing begins to strengthen somewhat, high pressure still over here. It's really positioned over here. Okay, so the flow kind of around this high pressure is going like this. And there's a wide open weakness, honestly. And that's why this thing on the latest Euro begins to sort of turn pretty dramatically. Okay, but watch what happens as you go through in time. And these are little features you watch. A ridge tries to build back over this area of the North Atlantic and the Northeast. That would prevent this from just directly turning out to sea. Instead, the flow around this ridge is kind of going like this. So this would still, because of forward momentum with anything, still continue to head north. It's not like it's going to stop here and then go like this. Forward momentum with a strengthening hurricane in this point will still allow it to kind of go north. But if you keep this going here, it's now starting to kind of get closer to the eastern U.S., and that's because the flow around this high pressure is doing like this and sort of kind of pushing this a little bit further to the east coast. And listen, I'm speaking on this like this is exactly what's going to happen. This is more of just a teaching moment about steering currents and things we'll watch. Now, as that ridge begins to back off or weaken or break, this thing, it gets very close to the mid-Atlantic coastline, but this thing might turn at the last second because it sniffs out a weakness. But at that point, it's going to hit probably somebody. If this was the way it happened, whether it's the Northeast, whether it clips Cape Cod, whether it goes up and hits our folks up in the Atlantic Canada area, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, etc. So there's a lot of things to watch. And this will become a heavier topic once we actually get a tropical system, I would say, if we do, into this area right in here. Okay, so moving forward, talking about today's weather, we got a big line of thunderstorms cruising through the northern terrain of Minnesota, moving out of North Dakota. Some storm activity in lower Michigan, a lot of energy kind of flirting off the coast of the southeast. We even have a little bit of blue showing up on the Bighorn Mountains, so that's interesting. And then we got a little bit of energy up here in Montana too. So that's current conditions. Watches, warnings, and advisories, heat advisories littered across the heart of the country. We got ongoing severe thunderstorm warnings right now with that line of storms. We got red flag warnings across the central Rockies, extreme heat warnings across the southwest, and it's getting hot across the western U.S. also. The Storm Prediction Center outlook, we have a slight risk across the upper Midwest. Level 2 out of 5. Big chunk of Minnesota, getting into areas of Wisconsin, and it still does include eastern areas of the Dakotas. Marginal risk does extend all the way down into the southern high plains, and this is really driven off. The tornado threat is at a 5% risk in this area. So St. Cloud, you're included, and then central areas of Minnesota, 2% risk of a tornado in this green area. International Falls, all the way down to Sioux Falls. And then the wind threat, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour in this yellow area. And the hail threat is at a 15% risk of hail. So the risk of excessive rainfall, there's a risk of it up here, 15% risk of flash flood guidance being exceeded within 25 miles in any given location up here. So let's watch out for flash flooding. Now let's break it down. Southeast first, a lot of moisture off the coast of the southeast. This moisture will begin to actually get into eastern North Carolina. You can see a little bit of a spin from our area of interest. I wouldn't call it a spin, but a lower pressure developing right over here. A lot of tropical downpours across Florida today. And I do think, finally, across the southeast, folks, it has not hit 80 degrees or higher in my house since last Friday. I think that'll change across the Carolinas today as we've been just locked into almost what you can call a historic wedge of cool air. But I don't think we're going to quite break the record for consecutive hours, at least here in Columbia, of hours below 80 degrees. I think we would need to go in about another 2 days or so, but I don't think that's going to happen. Northeast weather today, it's nice. Just some pop-up downpours in the Adirondacks, Vermont, New Hampshire, quite possible here. And then as we get into tomorrow morning, not a whole lot to speak on. Now, the south central U.S., as we move here in time, we get into this afternoon, we get into this evening, some showers possible, maybe some storms across Kansas, the western half of Kansas, panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas. And there is a marginal risk for these areas, so some of these could pack a punch. But I can tell you on this run, it doesn't look very serious, but that doesn't mean it won't be. Big line of storms cruising through northern Minnesota right now. This will weaken, and then another line of storms will form later this evening in almost the exact same areas that you're seeing it this morning. We could have a line of storms cruising through the UP, northern Wisconsin, and this line of storms later tonight and the northern half of Minnesota. could pack one heck of a punch. So be aware of that. We'll wake up to unsettled weather across the upper Midwest also. And just a closer look at this line of storms. This is the one for this morning. This will continue to cruise on through. I wish this would speed up just a little bit for me. It's lagging a little bit. Pivotal weather can be finicky. But then we get into this evening. This is 8 p.m. This is 8 p.m. This is 9 p.m. This is 10. And we got some storms blasting through these areas. Tornado threat with these. Damaging wind threat. Hail threat. This is how the radar could look like around 10 p.m. in areas of eastern North Dakota and Minnesota. And it just looks like a loud night. If you live in the northern terrain of Minnesota, even into Duluth, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, look at that line of storms moving in. And, I would just be aware of a couple lines of storms this afternoon and then maybe one later this evening, later tonight in the UP. You can see a line of storms around 11 p.m. hitting the western UP. That'll move through, so be aware of that. It should weaken by the time it gets to the eastern side, and then you could be greeted with another line of storms tomorrow morning. So be aware of that. Western U.S., some showers will continue to drift down into Montana, but everywhere else, just hot and not really a whole lot to talk about. Temperatures, still a cooler below average day across the southeast, but you are warming up. But it is still, in some cases, 5 to 10 degrees below average. Eastern U.S. just not getting a lot of the heat. Once you start to get west of the Appalachian Mountains, this is when you get back into summer. And we haven't felt summer temperatures in so long here in central South Carolina that I'm not forgetting how it feels, but I'm getting comfortable with how it is feeling. So the plains, very hot. Some areas can get over 105 degrees a day. Cooler air for the northern Rockies, but that's all I got with today's weather. Let's make this the timestamp. And let's do a Bible devotion really fast for you folks. Oh, no, almost lost that. So this morning, we're in Philippians chapter 2, verse 3 through 4. It says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility consider others as important than yourselves. Everyone should look out not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others. Okay, so I wrote a couple notes. It says, don't get caught up in your own personal gain, especially when your gain is hurting others. Value others. Make helping others a priority, and helping others, you will naturally gain a God-filled fulfillment in life. In time, this will become a desire. You will find joy in it. And what I mean by that is you will find joy in helping others. And somewhere along the line, you will find so much joy that you won't even worry about getting anything in return. Because I think a lot of times we get wrapped up in that, including me. You do a favor and you feel like you should get some acknowledgement for it. The only acknowledgement that should be a priority is God seeing you do it. And God's always seen what you do, whether it's bad or good. So do good things out of the goodness of your heart. It kind of goes back to tithing and stuff, right? And giving your time. Do it out of the goodness of your heart. Don't feel forced to do it, okay? Sacrifice to help others. Now, whether that's financially, whether that's your time, whatever it may be. Your energy, that's a big one. That's a big one. Sometimes it's tough to dig deep in the evenings after you get home from work. I get it, guys, but praise others. I wanted to add something else to this, but I can't think of it. But there's a way to succeed in life, guys, without feeling like you have to dog others to do what you do. And for me with Weather YouTube, I always go back to me because I hold myself accountable every single day. I challenge my thoughts, even though sometimes my thoughts might not even be bad. I challenge them. So even with Weather YouTube, for example, it's hard. And I've talked to you guys about this sometimes. It's hard not to. I can say I don't think bad about any weather YouTubers, but sometimes, I look at somebody that has a quarter of the subscribers I do, and I see a video that their videos are just popping off left and right. And it's like, man, what is he doing different than what I'm doing? What is that person doing? So, it's hard to not get too caught up in those thoughts. And I'm just speaking to myself because, I'm not afraid to be vulnerable with you guys. And sometimes you're like, well, you don't want those thoughts to slip in like, well, I'm better than that person, And sometimes they do, but you got to fight them off. don't let them consume you. We all have a sinful nature with us, right? So, constantly fight the good fight. Okay, fight off those thoughts. Talk to God when you start to, envy others or something like that. Feel jealous. And one thing with me, guys, is, I try to promote the heck out of others. I repost people's stuff. I share people's stuff. Not afraid to show love to others. I have a great group of friends. So Gerald's one of them. My buddy that runs, Jason, that runs Cold Rain Weather. He's a up and coming YouTuber. Go check out his channel. I got good friends that I can talk to about this stuff, and they run YouTube too. And we all kind of talk with one another, figure out what we can do different, get our videos out there, and it's a beautiful thing. So just surround yourself around people that's promoting others. So, anyways, I always go longer than what I need to with some of this. But God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you again probably sometime this evening.